I am sure that you have heard about ratings in television. When you hear how a TV show is ranked in the Nielsen ratings, do you understand what this really means? After you finish this video lesson, you will be able to define ratings and explain their importance, understand the media terminology associated with the ratings measurement, and how and understand the uses and applications of ratings and what is called impressions. You'll understand all these terms very soon. Radio and television are considered what is called broadcast media, meaning that their inventory, what they have to sell, offer, is airtime, and is driven by the amount of time they have available. This inventory is finite, meaning you cannot add more seconds or minutes to the day to create more inventory like other media has the ability to do with their own inventory. Broadcast airtime really defines the concept of supply and demand. The rating is relative to the audience measurement, and thus this price for this inventory for radio and television stations, what they set to sell this airspace to buyers, ad agencies, and clients in general, is related to the eyeballs or ears that these programs or shows generate. One thing to keep in mind, and this is very important, is that in general, these eyeballs or ears or exposure is to the actual program and not necessarily to the commercial. In other words, the exposure in eyeballs or ears or people tuned in to the program is not exposure to the commercial or whether people saw or heard the advertising message. There are different types of ratings you will learn from these lessons, such as commercial ratings. I know it sounds confusing, but it's not complicated once you understand the business. How many people are tuned in and the price of advertising placement is what is generally negotiated between media, in this case television and radio station, and clients along with their ad agencies. When that negotiation is completed and a commercial is placed in the commercial break of a program, the ratings that were negotiated or projected are actually, remember this, exposure to the program and not necessarily to the commercial per se, unless these are commercial ratings, but that's another subject. If the commercial falls in the commercial break, meaning the advertising message, and you can only imagine, think about yourselves, with delayed viewing, on-demand viewing, versus watching something live television, or it could be pre-programmed, but you know what I mean, linear television viewing. The first thing that people tend to do when they're watching on demand is what? Fast forward the commercial break so they can actually get back to watching, if this is allowable. Keep these concepts in mind. Now, the company that measures TV ratings in the US is called Nielsen, or the Nielsen Company. The company that measures radio ratings in the US is also owned by Nielsen, and it's called Nielsen Audio. It used to be called Arbitron for people like me who remember. Each country has their own variation of media audience measurement, but Nielsen's dominance in the media measurement space is undeniable. Nielsen provides TV ratings in order to provide an estimate of the audience for just about every program that can be. And you can imagine, you think about the way that you view content, you know that other devices, and Nielsen's measurement also includes streaming viewership on digital platforms. But let's keep talking about television as we know it. Unlike a newspaper or a magazine, even in digital formats where the publisher can account for how many copies were sold or distributed, there is no simple way to know exactly how many people are watching any given show. Nielsen estimates the audience by drawing a representative sample in each market and then calculating the number of viewers to every show in the sample. The numbers recorded in the sample or panel are then projected. Statistics, the basics, you understand that these basics on how sample observations translate into projection of those results to better explain how the population at large behaves. Based on these numbers, television broadcasts and cable networks, as well as station affiliates, can make decisions to keep running or canceling shows. Remember, making money selling this airtime is their bread and butter. So high ratings are an equivalent to revenue. And as I mentioned before, it is also the currency used in the television and radio industry to buy and sell airtime and also to set pricing. So to understand this whole concept, let's start now with basic terminology that you need to understand. Let's start with the concept of rating. The definition. Rating is the audience of a particular program or station at a specific period of time expressed as a percentage of the universe of that particular demographic. When you present a rating number, just remember, even though it's a percent, that percent symbol is never shown, just the number. A demographic or demo, what is that? Well, a demographic or a demo is the expression used for the breakdown of the audience by age and gender. For example, adults 18 to 49 years of age, adults 25 to 54 years of age, children 2 to 11, women 18 to 34, households, which by the way is also considered a demographic. This breakdown is established by Nielsen when they report the ratings, but it also aligns with census data. Universe, what is universe? Universe is the total number of people in that demographic, regardless of whether they're watching or not watching television. It doesn't matter. It can also be referred to as population, and you can use either term, universe or population. It means the same thing when you're talking the lingo of the market. Universe is always relative. And what I mean by this is, for example, it could be the universe or population of adults 18 to 49 nationally or in the whole United States. Or it can also be the universal population of adults 18 to 49 specific in a market, let's say New York City. Impressions, it's a very important one, impressions. They are the raw number from which to calculate the rating percentage from. It is the number of actual people from that demographic watching the piece of content, the show, the program, in number form. Network. What is a network? Network are stations that are connected through one another through carrying the same programming at designated times and airing live or pre-programmed, pre-produced, but on the same days and same times. For example, NBC network is comprised of 200 stations in different markets. NBC, some of you know, airs a program called Today Show every morning from 7 to 10 a.m. and is carried what is called by local affiliates. WTVJ, for example, in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, WXIA in Atlanta, KMBC in Los Angeles. NBC is the network, and these three stations mentioned are individual stations or what they call affiliates. So hopefully this gives you somewhat of a context so that you can understand this calculation. So let's start with the formula for ratings. The formula for ratings is very simple. The formula for ratings is the number of people from the demographic watching that show divided by the universe of the demo or demographic times 100. So it's a very simple formula. So now what we're going to do is let's start by using a real example. And by the way, these numbers may or may not reflect the reality, but let's start with saying we're going to be looking at adults 18 to 49 nationally. So the universe, and I'm going to put the universe down here, the universe of adults 18 to 49 equals 127,860,000. So what this means is that, again, this may or may not be reflective of reality, but let's say, as an example, that in the U.S., there's 127,860,000 adults 18 to 49. And by the way, when we're talking about universe or population, this does not mean that all these people are watching television at the same time. It means that these are the universe. But we're going to calculate the rating based on this universe. So let's go to the second number that we need to understand. Now, let's say that we're taking a program called American Idol on ABC Network. So American Idol, and let me put it here on pink, has, and let me put the demographic because we have to keep the same demographic in order to make this calculation. It has 14,140,000 adults watching at whatever, time period ABC Network airs the show. So there's 14,140,000 adults 18 to 49 watching American Idol on their given night. And the population of adults 18 to 49 in the U.S. is 127,860,000. So remember that in order to calculate the rating, we have to make a division. So let me draw a line here to signify division. Now, 14,140,000 divided by 127,860,000 equals 0.11058,971. So if you're going to remember the formula, times 100, you multiply times 100, and it's going to equal, let me switch colors again, it equals 11.06. Keep it to either 1 or 2 decimal points for accuracy. So you can express it as 11.06, or if you want to keep it to 1 decimal points, which is what I typically do, 11.1. So what does this mean? Let's say that you're in a meeting and you're discussing ratings, and they say American Idol pulled an 11.1 rating. What does this mean, really? It means that 11.1 of all the adults 18 to 49 in the U.S. were watching American Idol when it aired on its specific night. And by the way, again, there's different types of ratings, but let's just focus on the most basic concept of what rating is. 11.1% of all the adults 18 to 49 in the U.S. were watching American Idol. So now you know that in your course material, there's a PowerPoint attached to this video lesson. So practice with the rest of the shows shown in the table, and I'll see you in the next video lesson.